Good morning, everybody. I dug up this fig tree because it wasn't doing good. It was sitting in the same spot for about, I don't know, at least 8 years. It's been there a while. I was getting a lot of dieback. I was assuming it was because I wasn't covering up in wintertime, and that had a lot to do with it. I just kind of started neglecting it because I noticed it wasn't doing anything, so I stopped covering it up during the winter months. And I was getting a lot of dieback. Matter of fact, I did a video on dieback and choosing a good location for fig tree. So I eventually dug this one up and actually planted a different type of tree in its place. But and I said I was gonna pot it and revitalize it. Well, I kind of figured out another reason it wasn't doing good, partly because I wasn't covering it up and neglecting it. But when I looked at the root system, all of the main feeder roots, well, I'm sorry, these right here are the feeder roots. I'm sorry, they're looking pretty good, so I should be able to revitalize it from that. But the main tap root, like here, had died and it wasn't healthy, and some of the other main roots right here, weren't looking good. So that's probably why it sat there so long and didn't do well. Which is why soil preparation is such a good, thing to do when you're planting a plant. You want to get down deep, under the soil. So I can't remember if I did that or not. Obviously I didn't, because you want the soil under it to drain well, and you want it to be kind of soft so it'll get well established and form a good tap root or a good anchor root. Because if you don't do that, then it's harder for it to survive. So you can see parts of the anchor root, tap root that I cut off. It was dead, so, and I'm gonna cut a little bit more of this off in here, and I'm gonna repot it in this big pot right here, and I'm gonna set the plant kind of high, and I'll show you how I set it so it'll have plenty of room to form new feeder roots. So I'm gonna continue to prune that root system down so it'll continue to form new feeder roots. And the biggest thing is, hopefully what I want to accomplish is that it'll establish a new tap root. So I'm gonna set it kind of high in the pot so it'll have plenty of room to go down. And I'm gonna put some rich topsoil and compost, and I'm also gonna mix a little peat moss in it, so I can get a good rich mix in there. So hopefully we can revitalize this fig tree. So I'm gonna continue to prune this thing back some, get all this dead root stock off. So hopefully again, like it'll form another nice tap root, and we can get it back going, and we can either replant it somewhere else in the landscape, or I may, give it away. I'm not sure yet, but I do want to save it. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, I did a much more aggressive pruning than I thought I would, because I had several of these fusions of growing together. And it was better to just separate all these fusions. So I'm gonna actually plant these in separate pots. This one right here, they should all form root systems in separate plants. I'll probably put these in little smaller pots until they get off to a good start. Then I'm gonna put this biggest piece in the big pot. So I did a major pruning. I just got a machete and just start chopping away. I also had a lot of little Bermuda grass growing in there, so I had to get those Bermuda cuttings out because it'll start forming, more Bermuda. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and pot this one up in that main pot and be right back with you. Okay, so I repotted my plants. So the biggest one that had the biggest root stock of the main plant, I put in this big pot, so it'll have plenty of room to form new feeder roots and form hopefully another tap root. So I put half of this peat moss, the potting soil, the topsoil, and then I had a little bit of potting soil that I just used to mix in there to revitalize that old potting soil. But that peat moss is good for root development because it just makes it real fine, the dirt real fine, so it'll hopefully develop. Once those feeder roots develop, they ought to thrive in this mix that I have. So if you do revitalize a plant, it's good to just use a real rich potting soil, so to help it grow in that pot. So we hope these do well. I'm gonna let you see how they do. I'm just gonna keep them watered. These smaller ones, you know, were just some of the ones I was able to separate off the main rootstock, and this one here. So these real small ones, I'm gonna keep them watered. It's not every day, every other day. I'm gonna put them in a shady location where the soil, to help the soil stay moist. And once they start forming new roots, hopefully they will, then I'll repot them in a bigger pot, maybe something like that. So we're gonna see how they go, and I'll keep you updated on them. So here it is, middle of May. So we'll see how they look at the end of the summer. Hopefully they'll do well. You know, I'm gonna do my best to take care of them, and hopefully they'll form new roots and turn into good plants again. Okay, here it is about 2 months later, and they're doing well in the pots. I know that it's putting out new roots because it's put out an all new growth. When I planted these things, they had leaves on them, if you remember, but all those leaves fell off, which I knew it was going to do that, because once they go through the shock of being, you know, the root system being trimmed down like they were, and you know, repotted, they're gonna lose all their leaves. I could have just took all the leaves off, but you know, I don't recommend doing that. I like letting them, if I do repot a fig tree, I like to let the leaves just fall off naturally, instead of trying to force them off or pull them off. But they did all fall off, so it put out all new leaves and some new growth. And I've been continuing to prune it back, like some of these, like right here. I'm gonna prune off all this right here because there's no new growth gonna come on this here. So I'm gonna, you know, pruning this right below where this sprout is coming out at. So it's doing good. It's on its way. So I'm sure, you know, it's gonna advance. I'm gonna put it in the in my storage room over the winter to protect it from the cold elements, and it'll continue to develop roots throughout this whole pot. And I'm sure it's gonna turn into a good fig tree. Okay, this is the other little plant that I planted, and it is doing well also. It had a smaller root system on it, so I knew it was going to take it a little bit longer to take off. It did lose all of its leaves, of course, and I had to do a lot of trimming it back and pruning it back because we had a lot of dieback on it. But it's going to turn into a good plant as well. It's putting out new growth, so that let me know that the root system is doing well. And I'm going to again overwinter it and put it in storage when it goes dormant, when the weather gets cold. And it's going to continue to develop roots in that pot over the winter, and it's going to, no doubt in my mind, he's going to turn into some great trees for somebody. And the other two small ones I gave it to friends, you know, and they're doing well as well. But I had a few people that, you know, wanted fig trees, so I gave them those. The other two that you saw I had in pots. So, but anyway, these are to turn into some great trees. Appreciate you watching, and please subscribe.